Hi guys, thank you for taking the time to tune in to this video today. I wanted to discuss a topic that is very important in regards to the hiring process, but one that's often overlooked. And that's going to be how to create a professional post-interview thank you letter. Now, sending a thank you note after an interview, it really is a crucial part of sealing the deal in the hiring process as far as obtaining the job that you want and even working for the company in which you are applying. Taking the time to actually thank the hiring manager or just the people in general that have interviewed you, it isn't just polite, it also demonstrates a sincere interest in the position as well as the company as a whole. Not following up with the hiring manager or the individuals who have interviewed you might actually end up costing the position no matter how well the interview went. So that's why today I think this is such an important topic, and it's one that I want to teach you about so that you can work to create your own professional post-interview thank you letters. All right, so I always talk to you about integrating research and the why behind things, and so I thought that would be important for me to do for you as well. Why do we do thank you letters? Why do we take the time to do these? Well, according to a survey by online job matching service, The Ladders, which some of you have probably heard of, it's a great job matching tool to use if you're looking for a new position or so forth. 75% of interviewers said that that receiving a thank you letter from a candidate affects their decision-making process on who to actually hire. 75%, guys, that's a large number. Further, Amanda Augustine, who is a career expert at the Ladders, said that not receiving a letter such as a thank you letter for a post interview can be the deciding factor in rejecting a candidate who otherwise might have been a great fit for the position. So as you can see, creating and sending these thank you letters to the individuals who have interviewed you along the way could be a vital part of if you receive the job or not. Now, there's really no downside for sending a thank you note after a job interview, although for some reason most job candidates don't bother to do so. Sending a thank you letter, if it's done well and if it's created properly and it has a professional tone throughout, will definitely not hurt your chances at getting the job. In fact, worst case scenario, your thank you might be ignored. But best case scenario, guys, it will improve the impression you left after the interview, making you stand out from other competitors. And as you know, in today's job market, that is absolutely extremely important. But for some reason, some job candidates still don't take the time to send these thank you letters. And that's why, and I think there might be reasons for this, such as they are unsure of how to create the thank you letters, or perhaps they don't know that you're supposed to send a thank you letter. But either way, I want to make sure today that's not you and that you're taking the time to create a professional post-interview thank you letter. So beyond showing your enthusiasm for the position, a thank you note allows you to take the time to reiterate why you're the best person for the job or the best fit for the company. The letter is often best sent either by email or by US mail within 24 hours of when the actual interview took place. So it's something that's actually going to have a pretty quick turnaround. You want to do this because you're still fresh in the interviewer's mind. They haven't forgot you yet. You're not lost in the candidate pool. So when we get this thank you letter to them right off the bat, it kind of commits you to memory. Also, and this is something that I like to do, a handwritten thank you note sent in the mail can work really well if you don't have the person's email address. In that case, you would just look up the address for the company's human resources department. You could actually address the letter with the company name, you'd put the company name, you'd put attention, and for instance here you'd put attention Miss Glenna Wright, and then under that you put Human Resources Department, and then you'd actually put the physical address that you're sending it to. So you'd put the company name, attention Miss Glenna Wright, Human Resources Department, and then you'd actually put the physical address of the store. So that's how you would address that envelope there. Always making sure to include your return address as well, just because that's the professional way to do those kind of things. So I would think about if you're sending something by mail, I would think about making sure that you might want to consider spending the extra money and having the thank you note overnighted or within at least 3-day mail, 2 3-day mail, to ensure that thank you letter gets there in a prompt manner. So again, you want to make sure you're still fresh in the interviewer's mind, and by getting that thank you note there almost immediately, it kind of solidifies you as a candidate. So how do you do this? All right, your thank you letter needs to be brief. It needs to be no more than about 2 or 3 paragraphs, and it needs to reference particular points of the conversation that you had with the person that interviewed you. And we'll talk about that in much more detail in a little bit. Now, one tip I wanted to provide you here is, first, don't be too casual with your tone or with your language choices when you're writing your thank you letters. Even though email is relatively informal as far as communication goes, you don't want to slip into informalities with your language. You don't want to use emoticons or text speak, and text speak would be the abbreviation for thank you that you would text someone. You'd put that in your thank you letter or so forth. You want to avoid all those things. You want to keep it as professional as possible. You want to have a very professional tone throughout, because this letter is actually going twofold here. It's making you memorable as a candidate, and also is showcasing your professional writing skills, which is a benefit for any position that you're going to be hiring for. So as your resume, as well as with your resume and your cover letter, you want to customize your thank you note. You always want to make sure that you're double checking it for grammatical errors, formatting errors, spelling issues. A thank you letter that's full of typos, that's full of grammatical errors and formatting issues and things like that, really can backfire on you. So it can take a wonderful impression that you made in an interview and make it go sour quick, because it's just highlighting your deficiencies there, unfortunately. So you want to make sure that you're sending this in with proper grammar, proper spelling, and proper formatting. And that's another reason why we're going over this today too, because I want to show you how to do those things. Now, if you've met with multiple people, if you've interviewed with multiple people throughout this process, you want to be sure to send one note to each person if you have that person's contact information. So again, you can send that via mail or by email. I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, but I actually prefer a combination of the two. I like to follow up my interview with almost an immediate thank you in email form, and then I also like to get a handwritten note out very quickly in the mail and have it on their desk within a few days. I think that gives a more lasting impression. And guys, I want to stress this really quickly, because I think a lot of my students go, you know what, this kind of seems like a waste of time. Even though I've presented you with the research and the whys as to why you should do this, I want to tell you this, guys. I have interviewed for and had lots of jobs and careers and things like that in my life so far. And I can honestly tell you that every position I've interviewed for, that I've sent a thank you letter afterwards, I've gotten the position. Now, can I guarantee that's going to work for you? No, I mean, I can't make you that guarantee, but I can tell you from personal experience that every single position that I've interviewed for, that I've followed up with a thank you letter as well as a thank you email, I've gotten the position. And I've even had people who have told me afterwards that, you know what, I was going between you and another candidate, but you sent that thank you note and it just really made you stand out, and that's why I decided to go with you. So guys, these thank you letters could be a make it or break it deal for the position that you're shooting for. So it's just something to keep in mind. It's something I urge you to always do when you apply for a job. Excuse me. All right. So, like I said, you want to watch for grammatical errors, spelling errors, formatting errors. If you met with multiple people, you want to make sure that you're sending a thank you letter to each person that you met with. Now, this is an important part of the process as well that I think often gets over or not completely understood. And when you're sending a thank you letter, you don't want to create one thank you letter and send it to each single person that you interviewed with. You want to create multiple thank you letters. So I would create one thank you letter specifically for Miss Glenna Wright here. because we had certain parts of the conversation we talked about, which I would like to bring up in my letter and just make it more personal. Now, if I met with Tom Jones as well, I'd want to create a separate letter for Tom Jones and talk about some of the things that I talked about with Tom. So each letter should be different. They should not be generic canned thank you letters. They should be individualized and personalized for each person that you interviewed with. Now, regardless of how the interview happened, if you met the person in person, if you were over the phone, if perhaps you went to lunch with them, or even did some kind of online video like Skype or something, you want to make sure that you're sending out a prompt, keyword there, guys, prompt thank you note to each person that interviewed you. It will help solidify you as a candidate, I promise. Now, when you get home from the job interview or you hang up the phone or whatever it is that you did, you want to look over your interview notes, and that's something that you should be doing in any interview, is taking some notes along the way. You want to really dig into those notes and examine them, and then write your thank you letter immediately. And why do we go back over our interview notes? Well, we go back over these interview notes because because we want to pick out specific things that person said. Sometimes it's just that the person was hesitant in regards to your candidacy because they felt that you were lacking in some area. Well, in those situations, we want to make sure that we reaffirm ourselves as a candidate, that we point out, while this person did have a concern about that, I want to address that and just say that, I have all these other skills as well. I'll talk about that more in a minute, so I don't want to go too much into that, but really make sure that you're thanking the person for their time, their efforts, taking the time out of their day and so forth. But like I said, in most instances, email is perfectly acceptable. I like to do a combination of email and sending something by mail. That's just my personal preference, and I found that that really has helped me stand out in the past. Now, of course, a lot of job seekers think that writing a thank you letter is a complete waste of time, and you might be thinking that as well right now. And hopefully the job seekers that you're competing with in the job market have that attitude, that they think that writing a thank you letter is a waste of time, because guess what? Their thoughts on this couldn't be more wrong. And that would make you stand out as a job candidate because you did send that thank you letter. So a recent Career Builder survey showed that 22% of employers are less likely to hire a candidate who does not send a thank you note. And 91% like being thanked. So you can pretty much be sure that sending a thank you note is not going to hurt your chances at obtaining a position. If anything, it's going to help you to get that position. Now, let's take a look at some of the values of writing a thank you note. Few things here. It impresses the employers with your follow through. It shows courtesy towards the interviewer. You're being courteous and you're being thankful for them for giving you their time, because in the business world, time can be very valuable. It shows your understanding of professional courtesy. That's something that is a great characteristic to have when you're looking to be hired into a specific company or position. It conveys your interest in the position and even the company as a whole. It can provide you an opportunity to get back in front of the employer again in case perhaps you faded from their memory, because a lot of times these people that are hiring for these positions are interviewing multiple candidates, guys. They may be doing 50 interviews. So by getting that thank you letter to them, that thank you email to them, it helps to put you back into their memory, and you don't kind of fade into the candidate pool. It allows you to sometimes introduce information that perhaps you neglected to mention in the interview, or just to kind of go over some things they might have had some questions about. You don't want to do that too much. You want to really stick to the thank yous, but that is something that you can do. You can plug in there a little bit. It allows you to clarify anything that you don't think you communicated well during the interview. I'm sure we've all had those instances after an interview where we say, gosh, I just don't feel like I got my point across very well with that. Well, a thank you letter can help us to also make that plug there. So again, you don't want to focus too much on that because it is a thank you letter, but you can do that. You can help to clarify a few things if you feel like it needs to be done. It also, writing a thank you letter or sending a thank you letter, it demonstrates your written or email communication skills, which is a big part of the business world, the professional work situations of today's society. And also, It helps you to beat out competition so that you don't lose an opportunity just because the competitor decided to send a thank you note and get back in that person's um, memory, so to speak, and you kind of got lost in the pool. So it just kind of helps you to stand out. So in the end, you have so much more to gain rather than lose by writing thank you letters afterwards. And if you don't write the thank you letter, you could blow your opportunity. You could lose the chance at this position. So now, for me, that's not a risk I'm willing to take. And so I like to take the time and I like to create these thank you letters. And I just really think they're an important part of the process. Um, but let's start here. So how do you choose the right thank you method? Because like I talked about, we have basically three options as far as how we convey our thanks, as far as written communications goes. You can send a handwritten thank you note. You can send a word process document, such as what I've got here on the screen, a Word document that's been printed, and your wet signature is at the bottom. You can send that for your thank you letter. That works well. It's not something I prefer. I like to go between two things. I like to do, and this is the third one I was going to point out, you can also email your thank you letter as well, your thank you note. It would just be a thank you email for the most part. But I like to do two things. After my interview closes, within a couple of hours, I like to send a thank you email. After that, in the same day, I like to get a thank you handwritten card in the mail and send to that person as well. So, and I like to do that for anyone that I've interviewed with. And I'll talk about why on that in just a minute, why it's important to send them to everyone and not just one person that you think's in charge of hiring you. So I like to do a combination. It really is up to you though. If you want to do a Word document, I've got the format here that I'm going to go over today. If you prefer to do more of a thank you note, we'll discuss that as well. It's pretty much just this minus the address portion here. And with a thank you card, guys, you want to make sure that you're choosing something very neutral and professional in tone. So don't go pick up some kind of, cheesy thank you card with a kitty cat on the front. You're going to want to pick up a very plain looking thank you card that just says thank you on it, basically. Okay. For instance, in my house, I like to keep a pack of them. They have just simple blue, white, and gold stripes on them. It just says in white, thank you, and it's blank on the inside, and I write a thank you note. It's nothing too colorful. It's very bland, but that to me works best, and you want to make sure you're keeping it very, very neutral, okay, very professional. All right, so like I said, some people do a combination of these methods. Sending an emailed note immediately after the interview and then sending either a printed note like the one I have on the screen or a handwritten note the next day via mail really is the best process that I think you can do, that twofold process. Email is acceptable though for nearly 90% of employers according to that Career Builder survey I previously mentioned. So it's up to you. A simple email thank you can be great, but for me, just making it go over the top is sending the email within a couple hours of the interview and then sending that thank you letter the same day and really making sure that thank you letter gets on their desk within at least 2 days. So because you don't know how quickly they're going to make this hiring decision. So we want to get that to them. Your choice of method, though, can really depend on the job you're looking to get. So what you feel most comfortable doing and also what you think that person might prefer. So let's talk about what I mean by that. If the job you're pursuing requires skills with email, which most positions do, sending an email note that demonstrates your email expertise can be a great route. It doesn't have to stop there, but it can be a great starting point. If the job requires extensive use of Microsoft Word software, word processing software as a whole, creating and sending a note that is like the one I have on the screen might be the better choice. Now, if all of your communications with the employer have been via email, sending an email thank you might be the most appropriate choice. For formal organizations, like I know some of you might be going into the field of law or accounting or so forth, a handwritten thank you note using USPS might be the most appropriate method. Again, though, there's no hard rule on which one to use, email, a handwritten note, or a Microsoft Word style document. It really is a personal preference, and it really does depend on the position as well. I like to use a mixture of those things. Like I said, I like to send an email within a couple of hours, then I like to mail my thank you note the same day. So the choice really is up to you. But if you send email, do not send one email message to everyone you interviewed, meaning don't create a group of people all on one email and send that to everyone at one time. You need to make a separate email for each person you interviewed with, sending it only to that person. You need to also, like I said, don't make the note identical to the other person's. It needs to be unique. It needs to have a unique message. It needs to be based on the interview notes you took while you were with that particular person, and it needs to only go to that person. Okay, so each thank you letter, think of it as if you were writing a birthday card to family members. Each message you wrote would be unique and individual. That's what we want to do with a thank you letter as well. We want to convey that we are thankful for their efforts and their time and their graciousness in interviewing us, and we want to do that on a little bit more of a personal level. And that helps to connect us and solidify us as a potential candidate for the position. So with that in mind, yes, you will write different letters that reflect different discussions and points made during your interview for each person that you interviewed with. Remember, you never know who really holds the influence on the hiring process, guys. And that's why you want to always make sure that you thank everyone who interviewed you. Everyone. You just never know. The person that you thought might have been in control of hiring you might not be that person. Someone else might have more pull. So we want to thank everyone involved. Don't think you know who is the most important one and only write a thank you letter to them. You might actually end up doing yourself damage because you might choose the wrong person. And I always say, don't take the risk. Just thank everyone. A little more thank yous than necessary is a lot better than no thank you at all. All right. So, like I said previously, writing these thank you letters can make a world of difference, but you've got to get them written ASAP. I'd say the emailed thank you needs to go within 2 hours after the interview, and then you should have the handwritten note or the Microsoft Word style document thank you letter in the mail within 24 hours. And it's a personal call on my behalf. I like to have it overnighted sometimes or get there within like 2 days or so, because you don't know how quickly they're making these hiring decisions. So if we wait a week, we might be waiting too long. If we wait 4 days, 5 days, we might be too late. So just something to think about there. All right, so a few things that we want to keep in mind when we write these letters of thanks. Your thank you letter should highlight what the employer liked about you. So if they were just like blown away by something about you, you might want to kind of mention that. You want to cover positive information you wish you had said in the interview if you feel like it's relevant. If you don't, then that's up to you. But I will say that you always want to point out your strengths again as a candidate. And I'll show you what I mean in the sample letter that I have here. But I point out here education and experience, so forth. You want to express your skills in areas that the employer might have showed concern over. For instance, I heard a student one time who stated that the employer was concerned about their lack of work experience. While that could definitely be a very valid concern, you want to put their concerns to ease. You want to basically go into, hey, I just wanted to mention here, I know you had a concern about my lack of work experience, but I did want to also point out the fact that I'll be finishing my degree in business management in December. I've maintained a 4.0 while working throughout my collegiate career, and I really think that my work ethic in combination with my education will help to motivate me to continue to succeed in this position. So, there's a lot of different ways that you can word that there, but that's just something off the top of my head. You want to keep the message short. You definitely don't want to go over 1 page for a thank you letter, guys. You want to keep it to a couple of paragraphs. I'd say about 3 paragraphs is good. You'll see that I have a bit more here, but that's just because I wanted to show a few things to you. And you want to make sure that you're proofreading this very carefully. Preferably, you want to proofread it a couple of times on your own, and then you want to send it to someone else and have them proof it before you send it out. You never want to send out a thank you letter with grammatical errors, formatting errors, spelling issues. It can definitely backfire on you as far as your candidacy goes. So a few things that we don't want to do in thank you letters. We don't want to send a generic or a canned thank you letter. And by that, you don't want to create one thank you letter, leave it on your computer, and send it to every person you've ever interviewed with. Again, you want to make sure that your message is unique, that it's based on the notes you've taken in the interview with that particular person, and that you're sending it for that particular person. It shouldn't be some canned response. You never want to fax a thank you letter. You either want to do the email thank you or you want to send it by mail. And actually, if you do both, I think that's the better choice, but that's just me. You never want to claim experience or qualifications that you don't have. Guys, that can backfire on you quick. If you don't have some kind of software skills or, you're making up work experience, that can really backfire on you. And while it might get you the position, you're probably going to get let go soon because you're not qualified for it. So we don't want to overstate things. But, another thing is, guys, if you're saying you have some kind of work experience that you don't have or so forth, most times companies call and they check, of course, your references, but they also check your work experiences to see if everything on your resume is correct. And if they find that you're over exaggerating or even worst case scenario, telling a lie on your resume, then of course you're automatically tossed from the candidate pool. You're untrustworthy at that point. So we don't want to do that. All right. You never want to hand a sealed thank you letter to the employer at the end of the interview. I've had a student say that before. They said, well, can I just bring my thank you letter with me to the interview? And then after the interview is complete, can I just leave it on their desk? No. Like I said, you want to make sure that your message is unique and it's based off the notes you've taken in the interview. If you're just handing them the letter, that just says that, hey, I'm giving you this generic canned response thank you letter, and I didn't take the time to actually thank you. I'm just doing it because it's what it has to be done. So we don't want to do that either. We want to wait. We want to send the email thank you a couple hours after the interview. We want to send the thank you letter or handwritten note in the mail within 24 hours after you've interviewed with that person. And don't forget to sign anything you're putting in the mail. Well, and the email as well, but that's going to be a digital signature. But anything that goes in the mail should have a wet signature. So even if you're sending this Microsoft Word document or you're sending your handwritten note, make sure that you are signing your name on there, and making sure that it's legible as well, because they want to know who is thanking them. We want to make you stand out. We don't want to make you blend in. Okay, so with that being said, I want to go over this thank you note, guys. This would be the Microsoft Word or the word processing software style letter that you would send in the mail. And we're going to use Stephen Smith here. And we're going to use him, and we're going to say that he interviewed with Miss Glenna Wright. Okay, so Stephen Smith would start off by putting his name here. He'd put his physical mailing address here. He would put his personal email address here and his personal contact phone number here as well. Now, I know I've stated this in a recent lecture, but I want to make sure that you guys remember that your email address should be something that's very professional. His is just smith@gmail.com. You want to not use things such as jacksmom@hotmail.com or littlemiss@yahoo.com. Okay, anything that's like that is going to not be professional in tone, and it may cause them to see you in a different light. So we don't want to do that. And if you don't have an email address that is not like that, then you need to create one just for hiring purposes. You can go to Gmail, you can go to Yahoo, create a free account. You can create something that's really, really simple and professional, that you can put on your resumes and that you can check for hiring purposes. And something that's acceptable here. I mean, if his was, because I know you can't just get S. Smith. I mean, there are those kind of very basic email addresses are way gone. But you could put maybe S. Smith 01, for instance, and or 123s. S Smith 123, whatever it is. But you can do something like that, and it's still professional. You know, it's got a few numbers in there because you had to get the email address, but it's still professional. As far as the phone number goes, guys, I wanted to remind you of a couple of things here. Don't forget to always put your area code. Always put your area code. That's how you put a phone number. And also never list a business phone number. It should be your personal cell phone number or a phone or home phone. From here, you're going to come down 2 spaces and put the date. 2 more spaces after that, and you're going to put the person's name whom you interviewed with, Miss Glenna Wright, her position, Human Resources Manager, the name of the company, Macy's Department Store, and then the physical mailing address for the Human Resources Department. Okay. Then you're going to come down 2 spaces and you're going to begin your thank you letter. And you're going to start off with your very basic, just Dear Miss Wright, or well, yeah, you would start off like that. So I know sometimes people like to put a colon there after the last name or something like that. It really needs to be a comma, guys. It's just the way you do that. Give me just 1 second, guys. I am looking at something. Okay, just wanted to make sure my video was still going for you guys. Okay, so you start off with your salutation, Dear Miss Wright, comma, and then you're going to come down and start the actual part of your letter. Okay, so we're going to scroll right here so you can see it. Okay, so you want to start off by thanking them for their time. You want to remind them of when you interviewed with them and also the position for which you interviewed. Remember, guys, that hiring managers are hiring for multiple positions at one time. So while your name might ring a bell, they might have forgotten which position you were interviewing for. So we want to make sure that we throw that in there. So I just start off by saying, Dear Miss Wright, thank you so much for your time and the privilege of having an interview with you yesterday. So I'm pointing out when we had that interview for the director of stores position. Again, I'm telling you the position with your company. The next line, it just basically says, I truly enjoyed speaking with you regarding this challenging yet rewarding position and look forward to your decision concerning my potential candidacy. So I'm pointing out that I feel like I could really be a potential candidate. And I'm also saying, you know, I know this is going to be a challenging and rewarding position and it's something that I'm up for. So I'm sounding very enthusiastic with this and very assertive as well. So after that, so we took the time, we thanked them, we told when we interviewed, we said the position we interviewed for. Again, we really talked about how much we enjoyed talking with them about this. So we're showing enthusiasm there, and we're pointing out that we do feel that we're a potential candidate for the position. Now, the next paragraph is going to go a little bit more into my personal attributes while remembering to thank them as well, because that's a recurring theme throughout this. So further, I have to say that our meeting strengthened my interest in this position and the company as a whole. So I'm telling them again, I'm really interested in this. I'm really enthusiastic. I'm really passionate about this position. As mentioned during the interview, I will be graduating in December with a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Management, and I'm looking for an opportunity such as this to combine both my working skill set and education. So here I'm taking the time to reiterate a few things that's really going to be my strength. I'm graduating with a Bachelor of Science in Business Management. So, you know, this is for a management position, so I'm telling them that I have the education for this. And I'm also telling them, look, I'm actively looking for opportunities, and I'm, you know, kind of saying it in a way that says, I'm looking for opportunities. I hope that you're the opportunity for me if you so choose to choose me as a candidate for this position. So, and I'm also taking the time to remind them that not only am I finishing up my education, but I also have a great working skill set for this. So I have work experience in this as well. So I'm reminding them that I'm a twofold candidate. I have education and I have that working experience. Through my education and work experiences, I've gained many management and leadership skills, as well as an understanding of retailing concepts and dealing with the general public, which will not only make me a great candidate for this position, but also allow me to make a positive contribution to the company as a whole. So with this, again, I'm reminding them of my education and my work experiences, and I'm talking about how, I have these great management leadership skills that we probably talked about during the interview. So I want to remind them of key things we discussed during the interview. And I'm also reminding them of my reselling concepts that I have and how I'm able to deal with the general public, so my customer service skills and so forth. And I'm talking about, how this sets me apart, why this makes me a great candidate, and also not just I'm not just meeting the needs they have for me, that they're looking for, but I'm hoping to bring something to the table as well. I want to make a positive contribution to the company. So, um, this paragraph would also be a great spot to very, very briefly discuss if the person had a hang up about something in the interview. For instance, maybe they didn't like the fact that I haven't yet completed my education, that it's going to be complete, but it's not complete yet. Then I might say, I know that you expressed a concern in the interview regarding the fact that I've yet to complete my education. However, I wanted to reiterate the fact that I have a great deal of work experience and management and leadership skills, which will make me a viable candidate and successful in the position until my degree is complete at the end of the year. Okay, so again, you can word that a little bit better. That was off the top of my head, but very briefly, if they had a concern, you might want to bring that up here and talk about why you think you'd still be the best choice. Then we move on. We say, lastly, I'd like to again reiterate my enthusiasm for this position and the ability to work for Macy's department stores. So again, I'm giving it that I'm so enthusiastic. This is awesome. People like to have excited candidates. They don't want somebody that's going to come in and go through the motions. They want somebody that's going to come in, be enthusiastic, be passionate, and really put their all into the position as well as the company. Now, if they requested something of you, and that's why I put this line in there, if they requested something of you, you're going to want to include that here. And I just said, as requested, I then closed a copy of my college transcripts and a list of references. So perhaps they didn't want the references yet, so you held off on sending those. And they requested now, but they want them. So you would want to add this line in there. And then sometimes they want to see college transcripts. If they do want to see college transcripts, guys, always ask if they want official or unofficial. There is a difference. Unofficial means that you can print them off your computer and send them in. Official transcripts are something that have to be ordered through the school, and they go straight from the school to the potential employer. They never touch your hands. So those are official transcripts. Just something to keep in mind there. And then lastly, I'm just going to say, basically, I want to thank them again. Thank you again for the opportunity to be considered by your company, and I look forward to speaking with you again once final decisions are made regarding this opportunity. So I'm saying I do expect to hear back from you either way. I really, am showing some assertiveness there without being pushy. And then lastly, I say, please feel free to contact me at, and I have my personal phone number, or by email, and I have my personal professional email, should you need any additional information. So you're giving them, again, that contact information. And then you're going to basically close it by saying, again, thank you for your time and interest in me as a candidate. Then you're going to have your closing. And I'm going to scroll up a little bit more. You're going to have your closing, and you want to make sure, like I said, in regards to the cover letters we talked about before, you want to make sure that your closing is very appropriate. It's very professional. So you wouldn't want to put warmest regards or thinking of you fondly or trying yours truly. Those things are very lovey-dovey almost. So we want to make sure that we're staying professional and we can keep it with a sincerely. Another thing is, I want to talk about this here because I have a lot of military students who tend to do this. A lot of my military students tend to put V/R, comma, and then their name. And I know what that means. It means very respectfully. But if you're sending it within the military, you can put V/R, comma. Because that seems to be, I'm a civilian, so you guys excuse me on this, but that seems to be something that is acceptable in the military because I have so many students that close their letters that way. However, if you are applying for a civilian position, or if you're applying for a civilian position of some form, Nothing in regards to the military. You're going to want to, if you want to put very respectfully, that's fine, but you're going to need to type out the full words, very respectfully, comma, not V/R, comma. Okay, that's what we call you never want to abbreviate things. I guess that's kind of a better way of putting it. Never abbreviate. So you could put sincerely, comma, or very respectfully, comma, or respectfully, comma. And then you're going to drop down about 3 or 4 lines and you're going to type your digital signature, which I have here, Stephen Smith. And we put this gap in between sincerely and the digital signature because this is where your wet signature should go. So you should take a pen and actually sign your name to this. You should always sign a document, not just digitally. You should sign it if it's going in the mail or going into someone's physical hands. An email, of course, an email would just have your digital signature, your phone number, and your email address. So that would work perfectly well. But for a handwritten note or a Word document that's going in the mail, you're going to want a wet signature at here and then digital signature at here. Now, I put enclosure down here, and I've got the references and transcripts because, again, they asked me to include these things. If they didn't ask me to include anything, I wouldn't be sending anything, and so this enclosure part would not be on here. So that just depends on the situation. Okay, and that's how you would send a Word document thank you letter in the mail. Now, just a few differences as far as email or a handwritten thank you note. For an email, you would not include this address information or the date. You would start right here at the salutation, Dear Miss Wright, comma. Okay, so for an email, it would actually start like that. Okay, and so you'd put Dear Miss Wright, comma, you'd actually type out your thank you letter. Everything in the thank you letter would stay the same as far as what you're saying and so forth. And you would just close it. Again, you would use the closing here, sincerely or whatever you're using professionally. And then you would put the digital signature. And it would say Stephen Smith. It would say your phone number and your email address. And that was what you'd have. As for a handwritten thank you card, it would be the same way. You would not include the address portion. Again, you would start just like an email. You would start at Dear Miss Wright. You'd again include everything like you would in this letter as far as the content goes. You would sign it with a closing sincerely or whatever in a professional tone, and then you would just sign your name. And since in the handwritten note, you've already included the phone number and the email address, there's no need to write that out under your name. When we do an email, we include it there as well because it looks professional, but it's not necessary on a handwritten thank you note. It's a bit more personal. So, yeah. So guys, that's it. Like I said, thank you letters are often overlooked in the hiring process, but they're one that can really set you out as far as your candidacy goes. I've never had a position I've hired for that I did not receive the job when I sent a thank you note. I don't know. Maybe it's coincidence, maybe it's not, but I will say this. People that hire individuals for a living, people that work for companies and do a lot of hiring, it really sets you apart as a candidate when they receive that thank you letter. So definitely something that you should be thinking about and something you should do on your next interview. And otherwise, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to let me know. Thanks so much for tuning in and have a great day.